This is a little bit of a different kind of a video, but I feel like it's important enough to make, and it's on my mind, so I'm going to share it with you. And I'm not going to go into details like a lot of other things because I want to protect people's privacy, but at our school this week we lost a student who was... that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm not going to go into any more stuff because I want to respect his family and his privacy. It has me thinking about the number of students I've lost over the years being a teacher, whether it was to violence or to health issues or whatever. So in dealing with this week, I've been talking to other teachers who have not really known how to handle this or how to deal with this. And I want to just share my thoughts on that. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor. I've done things like spiritual direction for the last 10 years, and so I think that's given me a little bit of an edge on how to deal with some stuff that's going on in my own head anyway, but I just think it's worth talking about. And so this is one of those videos that even if it helps one person, like this was worth making because teachers will know what to do with. My hope is that this will help to better equip you in some slight way going forward when you're dealing with this, maybe in your own life or with your own students. To be honest, like the lessons that we teach can seem really trivial after a great loss, after the loss of a student, after the loss of someone in your own family, and it's hard to bounce back. And nothing here is gonna like make that happen immediately, but it just kind of gives you the tools to sort of deal with it in a little bit of a better way in case you don't have experience with that. The first thing I want to talk about is in talking with other teachers recently, I feel like folks feel like they need to show up and be their best to be able to help the students deal. And I don't think that that's true. I think you can show up and be utterly broken and still help students, because what you're doing there is you're sort of like being the example of what's allowed to happen in your building or in your classroom. If we are always put together, always strong, always confident, it's not showing the students any sort of vulnerability so that they can sort of mirror that. Sometimes you have to be in your classroom what you want to see in your student. It's okay to show up, to cry, to be vulnerable, to be upset about something. It shows that you're an actual human being, and it shows your students what they are allowed to feel and what they're allowed to be also. I'd say the first thing that you can do when you find out whether maybe a student in your school has passed away, or maybe you have a student in your class who's like, had a parent or lost a grandparent or something like along those lines. I think the most important thing is to just acknowledge it, right? To touch base with that student. You don't need to force it, don't make them talk to you, but just let them know that you know what they're going through and that your classroom, if they need to, is a safe place. A lot of times schools after tragic events they'll have counselors come in, they'll have therapists come in, and if the students don't know those individuals, they might not feel safe talking with them, especially if it's a one-on-one situation. So it falls on you, the teacher, to like help guide kids through things. And then maybe you can talk to them and help them see that like talking with a therapist is actually a good idea. So you need to be prepared for that, and you need to be able to just reach out and touch base and let them know that you're there and that your classroom is a safe place to talk about this stuff. For kids that don't want to talk about this, kids that feel completely uncomfortable talking about their feelings and stuff like that. Someone in the comment section last week in my building relationships video said that sometimes students, particularly students with autism, have a hard time keeping eye contact with the teacher. And so what she does is she'll get like a stack of papers that need to be stapled, and she'll staple papers with a student. And then there's this sort of menial task, this mindless task that gives a student something to keep their eyes on while you're having a conversation, and then it doesn't become uncomfortable that you're not looking at one another. And I just think that's a great idea. Journaling is also a really good idea. Kids don't always want to talk about how they're feeling, but they might draw a picture or they might write something down and explain how it is that they're feeling. And then perhaps they'll let you read that, and even if they don't, it's okay. They're working on getting that stuff out, and that's what's the most important thing. So maybe they talk to you about it later. Maybe we can read each other's journal entries. Maybe they could read it aloud, or they could just hand it to you and you could read it on your own, and they pass it off to you, and then you have a discussion about it. Again, that stuff, what's going on inside out, is really important. So I'd say the third thing is actually talking to kids about why this is important. One of the examples I gave my students was like, when you're young and you don't know how to deal with this stuff, it's important to try to deal with it, because otherwise you're gonna end up being that 40-year-old man that's gonna get a fist fight on the street because someone took your parking spot or they moved your lawn chair. Like in Philly, everyone puts like lawn chairs or trash cans in your spot after you shovel them out. And if someone takes that, you get pissed off, man. Like I just spent an hour digging that thing out. put my lawn chairs there and everything, and then you stole my parking spot. But I'm not gonna get into a fist fight about it.
What the hell was that?
What?
You went from like talking about losing someone to fighting someone in the middle.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's real Rap with Reynolds. This isn't bullshit with Reynolds. All right, so I'm gonna do it again. Cheesesteaks back there.
Hold up.
He said that wasn't very clear, so I'm going to say it again. Helping students deal with the problems that they have going on inside, the anger, the frustration, the depression, what that's going to do, you're training them to deal with their problems instead of pushing them further down inside. Because what happens is when you push that stuff down inside, and this is my own opinion, I don't have any like research to cite or something like that. What ends up happening is when you grow up, that stuff manifests itself in different ways. Maybe you have health problems when you're older. Maybe you become the guy who like someone cut you off on the road and now you're ready to jump out of your car and like beat the crap out of them because you didn't deal with that stuff when you were younger. It's that old ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. Like if we can help kids deal with things now, then they're going to be more apt to deal with them and more prepared to deal with them when they're older. The next thing is, I think I'm on 4 or something. Don't feel like you have to fix stuff. Giving kids a safe place to reach out, to talk with you, to have a conversation, to have a chance to like share what's on their mind in your classroom is good enough. You don't have to have the right thing to say. But sometimes, like I've said before, just sitting in the muck with someone can be very, very comforting to them. You don't have to fix their problem. Sometimes you can't fix their problem. If someone's mom died, you can't fix that problem. But what you can do is sit there with a child and let them feel bad and let them feel like they're not alone. I think another simple answer, if you don't feel like you have a particular relationship with that certain student or if the kid is reluctant to talk with you, maybe find some other students. Maybe you can get them to gather around that child and they can be the support for them. And that does a couple of things. One, it lets that child feel like they're being supported and they're being thought of, and it's not just teachers, but it's other students. But it also gives the kids that you give that task to a sense of importance, that they can feel like they're being trusted with something so important as to care for someone else who's lost someone. And that can give them a sense of purpose in a time of loss, which can just go on to help them deal with that as well. And I'd say the last thing is, when I was 21, my mom was sick. She got lung cancer. It went bad really quickly, and within 5 months or so, 6 months, she died. Right after my 22nd birthday, she died. I remember the beginning of that. When my mom was sick, friends were around, and then people didn't know how to deal with it as it was getting worse, and they just started like falling by the wayside. We wouldn't hear from certain family members anymore, or certain friends stopped coming around because they weren't sure how to deal. And they didn't realize that just being there was enough for us. They didn't have to bring food or do anything nice. And then after my mom passed away, it was like this onslaught of like food and kindness and people showing up. But that lasted for about a week, and then that was it. It was like a storm blows in, and then after the storm, there's just wreckage everywhere. And everyone else is really eager to get back to their own lives. And I don't blame them. I have no hard feelings. But at the time, it just felt very, very lonely. Like everyone else went back to their normal lives, went back to their regular Christmas holiday and New Year's and moving on to stuff. And myself and my siblings felt very, very alone. Like what happened? Where was the love now? And so if someone is experiencing loss in your school, whether it's a coworker that lost a parent or a student that lost someone, it's important to just keep up with those kids and those staff members well after that happens. I think it's so important to just keep up with kids. Ask how they are, ask questions and that aren't yes or no questions, like how have you been feeling lately, or how are you dealing with this, or hey, just so you know, my room is still a safe place. I realize that like you've not fallen off my radar. I still want you to feel like it's a safe place to show up to and have someone care about you. Some of those things never leave you. If you lose, someone, that can stay with you for a year or 10 years. And I remember after losing my mom, it took about 10 years before I didn't think about it all the time. It was very, very hard for me to get over. That's worth just keeping in mind, because although kids are really resilient and they look like things are back to normal, they're not back to normal. That stuff just springs up out of nowhere, and a lot of times kids don't know why they're acting a certain way, and they don't know what to do with that pain or with that anger that they feel inside. So you just giving them a safe place to just talk about it is enough. So maybe I sum this up by just saying, reminding you that you are enough. If there's no other option, we have to be the people that step in, that try to help students and care for them in this time. And then hopefully maybe you can get them connected with the other resources that they need if they're willing to open up with you. I think that's enough. You know, if you have other ways that you've dealt with this, maybe you want to leave it in the comments below. Maybe you want to leave your own story below and someone can try and help you out or reach out. I don't have all the answers for this, but this is something that happened this week and it was really traumatic, and I just felt like I wanted to put some sort of resource out there on YouTube to all of you so that if God forbid something like this happens to you this year, then you have something to go off of. That's it. Thanks guys. Peace.